Scott Estrada.
Ryan Dewey.
Thanks for being here on the journey. Ever since I started this, you were at the top of the list of who I wanted to get in, have this conversation with. I think it's a long time coming. With the time that we've known each other, we've never had all the talks and connections we've had. We've never had like a true sit-down space like this in the new podcast studio. Yeah. It's only right that you're the first one here, Plunge HQ. So, man, really appreciate you coming on.
Oh, dude, I'm stoked to be here. Anytime we get a chance to, it really doesn't matter what we're doing. That's when I think of all the times we've sat and shared experiences. It's like there's always been such a great interchange, you know. So, but yeah, to do it in this incredible space and this chapter and this time and this moment with everything that's going on and everything that's happened. I mean, what an amazing thing. So just stoked to be here.
Grateful for it. I mean, I think you are so many things to me. Like, just, you know, you are my health guidance, and I say health holistically in so many different ways. I mean, you know, dear friend, you're the person I turn to when anything I'm questioning something mentally, physically, spiritually. I come to you. You are the most incredible mirror that I've ever encountered in my life. You have, you know, the most like timeless and just ageless viewpoint onto the world. And it's like so fun and like life is magic to you. And I remember when I first met you, that was real. And I almost questioned it. I was like, is this authentic? And it is the most authentic thing I've ever seen. Like, you have a context and a viewpoint on the world that is, and how to move through life, that is incredible, that I hope some of that comes out today into this. Like, you truly are, like, life is happening for us in a way of, you know, it's a blessing or it's an opportunity, and it's just gratitude consistently. Like, and it's the coolest thing. And I just, you know, really want to acknowledge you for that.
Dude, thank you. It's, wow, that's let me just let that land a minute. Thank you. Yeah. That's, if I can be a mirror like that to just one person, then, man, I think I'm fulfilling some of my good purpose, you know?
You're definitely here to do that, and you are doing that.
Yeah. And
I would be curious on how you would describe what you do in the world. Like, what from Scott Estrada, like, to me, you wear so many different hats and do so many different things. How would you describe what you do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, wow. At this chapter of my life and, you know, what I've learned, and I think I got to go back and say that it all started with curiosity for me. Just like being uber curious has been kind of my North Star. Just like always asking questions, really good questions, learning how to ask bigger questions to unravel, like, what am I here to do? What's my contribution, you know? And so health and wellness and feel good and understanding, like, what the hell is actually happening on the earth, you know? Like, from a very young age, just asking big questions and seeing a lot of, like, sick people with disease, people with all kinds of inflammation, people that were maybe not thriving, and then having the opportunity to see a small percentage of people that were thriving, and then asking, like, what's the difference here? Why is this reality the way it is? And I think that early curiosity just led me, you know, down a road where I started to get like, okay, I think the objective here is to feel good. I want to feel good. I want to feel vibrant. I want to feel vitality. I want to feel all that I can feel.
Was it a certain experience that happened, or was that innate in you?
You know, it's a good question. I think it's both. I think I was always innately curious of, like, you know, I remember when you asked that, one thing comes to mind. I remember as a kid watching, I don't know if you remember this show, it was called The Superstars. And all these athletes, you know, like track and field athletes, Olympians, football players, basketball players, all these like high-level athletes that would come together and compete, you know. And I remember, like, Howard Cosell was one of the commentators, and I was always just inspired by watching these athletes perform at a high level, you know, outside of their normal sport or whatever
Got
it was. They would come together and do all these different events and everything. And it was super fun, but yet competitive. And I was like, they're just, pushing the bar. And so it made me curious. And I think my dad being a high-level athlete too, at a young age and watching this hero for me really perform at a high level. I mean, anything he picked up, he could just do extraordinarily well. But basketball was really his main sport. But it didn't matter what he was doing: football, basketball, baseball, throwing a frisbee, hitting a golf ball. He was just a natural. So he made it look like poetry. So it was like that, growing up with that as a model, and then kind of like as a young boy discovering that within myself. But yet then seeing people in our family that were like obese or really sick or diseased, it's like, what is the difference here? And then, seeing that contrast, it got me really, really curious. But yes, there was an event that happened with my dad and I in like 1981. I'll never forget that, 4th of July.
Tell me about it.
And well, we were in Oregon, and it was just me, him, and my brother. And it was a warm day in the summer, and we were, playing volleyball and kind of on a party vibe atmosphere along this lake. And, we were just going for a swim. And it was like high dives and diving boards and slides and all of this on this, maybe a couple docks down from where we were at on this lake. And we swim down there, and we're going to check out this vibe down there. It looked really fun, like, take a break from volleyball and everything. So we swim down, and there's people everywhere. You can imagine 4th of July. It's just a, celebration day, perfect Northwest day. And come to find out it was kind of a private, club or whatever. And so the lifeguards came down, and they're like, hey, you got to have a wristband to get in here. This isn't just open to anybody. So she didn't dig us but my dad being who he was going to, try to warm her over and, talk his way in and make it all good. She wasn't having it, So I'm like, hey, Dad, I'm going to swim back. No big deal. So I'm start swimming back, and he's there hanging out, and I'm just taking a cruise back, observing everything around me and everything, and all the fun and the noises of the 4th of July, and, just watching all the people doing their thing. Then all of a sudden I look back, and I see him kind of dive in the water, no big thing, but then I see him kind of frailing. And I was just confused, I was like, God, what is happening? And I'm kind of just almost like I'm blocking out the rest of what's going on around me, and I'm just kind of focused on him, and I'm just like, this isn't anything I've ever seen before. Here's this guy that could do just anything physically, and he's kind of just acting abnormally in the water. He's frailing. He's almost in distress, but I'm like, he wouldn't be hurt. Like, how is that, So then he starts to go underwater, starts bobbing around, and then I'm just starting to kind of feel my heart rate starting to go. And I'm like, something isn't right,
You're what, 11 years old at this time?
12, yeah. And so my brother was there, but he was, he's 5 years younger than me, and he was back at the dock, and I'm kind of I'm getting my way back there now, and I'm just still looking back, and I'm focused on him, and the water's not really deep. We're probably like 6-8 feet of water. But then I get the sense that something's really wrong, because he's kind of coming up and down and frailing his arms, and I'm kind of like yelling to this woman, this not woman, young girl. She was a young, probably 17, 18-year-old teenager or whatever. And she wasn't really taking it that serious, and I'm like, Then he started to really kind of hover on the water like he was gasping for air. It was really weird. And of course, at that moment, I'm like looking around, and I'm realizing I'm the only one that really knows this is happening out of all these people.
What do you think's happening at this time?
I don't really know.
I'm just like, you see your dad like stuck in the water.
Like, it was like, is he drowning? How is this possible? Like, what the hell's going on?
So this is all happening in like a split second?
Yeah,
This
maybe.
Like you're taking all this in. Time's just almost stopped.
Almost stopped. Yeah. And I'm just like, the whole thing's bizarre. And I'm like, so then she kind of starts to connect to me that I'm trying to get her attention. But, I'm probably 50 yards away, and there's noise, and I'm, and there's a whole party going on behind me, so nobody's really paying attention there. And that's when she goes to get help and realizes there might be something happening there. So she goes to get her boss or her supervisor or whatever. This guy comes down and he's like a big, maybe 6'8", 6'9", just a tall dude, 250, 260, big guy. And he comes down and she's telling him that kind of like this is a joke, like we're playing a joke on her because she's not allowing us access to this place or whatever, right? So there was this whole thing. And I started to see this dynamic where he starts yelling like, hey, we've had enough of you guys and you guys need to get out of here. And the whole thing, he's still kind of bobbing in the water. And I'm going, no, I think he's in distress, and I'm kind of like, so he takes this pole like you would see like on the side of a swimming pool or something, to kind of help people that are in distress, and sticks it, kind of jabs him with it. And I'm watching this and not really any response. And I'm like, no, he needs some help. Finally realizes that this isn't a joke, and the guy jumps in, and that's when it got really bizarre. That's when I'm like, okay. And I'm going back to the shoreline because I'm going to beeline down to because I know I can't swim that fast to where this is happening. I'm just going to run along the shoreline. And this guy's in the water, and he kind of picks him up in like a seated position. And this time he's kind of full of water. He's he's drowning, And his whole thing is to like get him up on the dock. So he flips him and is just boom, lands right on the dock and kind of snaps his neck. And I just couldn't believe what I just saw. It was like so bizarre. Like, why would he do that? Why would he, So I kind of dropped for a minute, just pause. And I'm like, wow. And by this time, other people are now kind of keyed into what's happening. And so fast forward, they kind of resuscitate him. And all of a sudden there was an ambulance there. And I just remember like dripping wet, jumping in this thing. And he's on a stretcher. And off we go to a hospital,
No. And you're in the back of
I was in the front of an ambulance. I was in the passenger of an ambulance. Just and there's just crazy, just chaos going on. This whole 4th of July scene, people everywhere.
So your dad basically hit the bottom, dove in.
Something. I mean, we don't know. It's still a mystery. Like we don't. We drained the lake, and there was a whole investigation. And
yeah. So this event happens.
Yeah.
You're 11 years old.
Yeah.
Your dad is. You're riding in an ambulance to the hospital. You're with your brother. This is the guy that you looked up to your whole life.
Yep.
This was your everything.
Yep.
This was the model of a man to you.
Yeah.
And so then what was what happened with your dad?
Yeah. So we get there, and it was just like, where's the family? I'm like, well, this is it. And so the admin is like, they rush him into like a emergency surgery, and 5 hours later kind of comes out, and the doc's like, where's the family? I'm like, you're looking at him. Me and my brother, and we're just kind of standing there. And there was a few people that had come from the party that were friends of his. And the whole thing was just so bizarre. But they're like, yeah, he's broken his neck, and he'll never walk. And, he'll be lucky to live maybe 5 years. And he's going to have this condition. And so it just, that whole moment just was so surreal. Like the whole thing was just like, how is this even possible? So I think that was the moment that my nervous system went into kind of survival mode, just fight or flight, just kind of like, I don't know. It was bizarre. It was like a shock. I was in shock, like how could this happen? How could this happen to this Superman, right? Who could do it all. So yeah, I mean, going back to the place that evening with my brother where the party was, and just kind of while there was a whole, whole celebration going on and people were partying and doing their thing, we're kind of up in this kind of mansion on the lake in this quiet room, just kind of, going to sleep and just kind of like, okay, this is the new trajectory now.
So your dad's paralyzed.
Yeah.
That was your mom in your life at that time?
So they were divorced. So she was up in from Pacific Northwest. So she was up in Seattle. This happened in Oregon, a couple hours south of Portland, Lake Oswego, Oregon, to be specific. And so they weren't together. So, but, I called her obviously that night and, hey, this is what's happening. And she comes down the next day and, same with my grandma and a few other family members. And so he's in ICU for a while, as you can imagine, just kind of getting stable, halo brace, they go right in to stabilize and do, all this surgery on his neck to fuse everything and stabilize it and all that, just to kind of and, we're talking with the neurologist and this is the state of what it's going to be. And, so it's very, very touchy at that moment. So my mom takes my brother and, he was 5 years younger and just kind of says, hey, I'm going to take your brother. And I remember her looking at me and she was like, what are you going to do?
Wow. 11 years old.
12 years old.
12 years old at this moment. So is that a clear delineation of there's pre that moment and post that moment?
Yeah, for sure. And it's bizarre because I still find myself going back to that moment, even in the now moments of this chapter of my life, how defining that was, and how that just clearly was supposed to happen. It happened, right? It was an amazing thing, and it actually, as harsh as it was, and how that trajectory changed everything, it really defined who I am today in a lot of ways. It got me so curious because I remember. I remember talking to some of the docs and they're like, yeah, nerve cells don't repair. And now we know they do. And, but that was the time, that was what I was being told. This is just his condition. He's going to be this way. And in my mind, I'm like, he can heal. He can walk again. He can do all the, he'll figure it out,
How did I'm so amazed by that because usually when children make that choice at you have to kind of grow up and you have to take the responsibility of the family at a much younger age than what most of what is common practice, the common experience. People carry that burden their whole life. I am responsible for everything. Life is so heavy. You are the farthest from that. You are, yes, you are responsible and you are those amazing attributes, but you are childlike curiosity with the world. You are ageless. And tell me about that. How did you make that choice? You're kind of the grown-up in the family now, caring for your paralyzed father solo, with everything that comes with that, and still creating a life where you are very, very youthful into how you view the world and how you move through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think in those moments I was just a lot of kids maybe at that time would have coped with who knows what, to numb out, substances, whatever, and kind of find their way of not feeling all that heaviness. For me, my coping mechanism was just curiosity. I just became uber curious. And I'm like, shit, this just lit me a fire. I'm like, I'm going to figure out biology. I'm going to figure out this human body. I'm going to figure out this doesn't make sense. They're telling me he can't heal this, And so
you focused into you got a front and center look at the medical system.
Yeah, I was in there for a couple. We were in there intensely. There was the ICU. There was out of the ICU and stabilizing. Then we had to move to a rehab unit for spinal cord injuries, really intense, which happened to be in Portland, of all places. It was one of the top places in the world. In
your backyard, right there.
Yeah, right there. How bizarre, right? That's where it was. And there was a waiting list to get in there, and somehow out of some miraculous, he was moved to the top of that list, and we were able to seamlessly move out of that hospital into that ICU. And that was really one flew over the cuckoo's nest. That's when things got really interesting because it was everybody in there had a spinal cord injury, and so all these family units come from all over the world, and we became one family because everybody had this in common. So it didn't matter what your background was, what your religion was, what your political. We were all the same. And we were all there to support each other. And it was just the coolest thing, right? And so that's when things, for the most part, I was kind of living on my own. I told my mom, I'm going to stay with friends and I'll be okay. And I think she knew she couldn't take me. She knew she wasn't going to take me.
How old were you at this time?
12. Yeah. 12, right there, 12 and a half, going to be, so it was just survival mode, just okay, I can do this. But I knew I couldn't leave him. I had to be with him on this journey. I knew there was something, wasn't an option. I was going to leave. And so, I mean, it was just incredible because to watch him go into this space of recovery and learn how to take his first step and get out of a wheelchair and stand up and do all of that was just like, and the way that he dealt with all of this really was humor. He brought a sense of levity, of lightness and humor to an institution that was pretty serious, psych evaluations twice a day, all these different things that were trying to look at his mental, emotional state, and all this. Could he go back into society? Was that going to happen? And so I think everybody deals with adversity in different ways. For him, it was bringing lightness to it and connecting with people, and that he's a lover of people. Before the accident, he's even more a lover of people now. A lover of life. I mean, he's still alive today, which is a miracle. So, we're in that unit, and he's like, "Hey, we need to have a wheelchair basketball game." Well, this institution had never even heard of such a thing, So he organizes this deal and gets everybody on board, and
Were you coaching him just dawned on me, were you working, not that you were a coach at this age, but were you supporting him at this time, working through some stuff? Was this natural to you? Your dad's going through this process. He just went through going from this athlete figure to now he can't move anymore. Were you almost helping your dad cope with this? Obviously, he brought humor to it, but what was that relationship like?
I think so. I think without really knowing it, I think I was. I think I became really good at kind of holding space. Without knowing what that was or the term around that. I think I just became good at being with somebody.
Dude, and that's the takeaway. It's our hardest moments shape our greatest strengths.
Yeah.
Whether you had some natural ability there, I'm sure you did because you're amazing at it now, but you couldn't have grown that capability without going to the depth of that position.
Yeah, totally.
And I hammer it home to every. It's how do we get to a place that when we are in our hardest moment that we can see through that, and it's to be oh, this is the moment. This is the moment that is training me and shaping me to go slay the dragons in the future.
Yeah.
And it's not happening against me. It's my gift. And I'm just fascinated with how do we get to that spot of how do we sink? Some people sink at those moments and some swim.
Totally.
And I'm curious if you have thoughts on that of because you do have that viewpoint on the world and how for people to step into those moments of when we are in our most struggle, our most annoyed, our most stressed out state, our most sad, angry moments. What is that? How do we get through that to a place that's I'm learning that this is shaping me for something bigger and strengthening me?
I think feeling it, just really leaning in and feeling the hard feelings. Because there was no way I could have connected those dots that you just said at that age. I was oh my God, my life is totally different than all my buddies. They're going on vacations, I'm not. They're coming home to dinners, I'm not. There was so much difference. I started to see this I started to judge myself. I started to feel robbed. I started to feel, I think if I can sum it up this way, it's I always had a dream that one day I would grow into my male body, into my adult body physically, where I could play at his level, where we could get on the same team. And, it became clear that wasn't going to happen. So I was feeling all of those feelings wow, this is just, I didn't see this coming, And so, like I said, I think it was a defining moment. Like you said, it's leaning into that adversity. It's shaping us in those moments. But I was like, kind of like, I don't know. I was feeling like my life was going to be so different. But I didn't realize it really was it was my greatest gift.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't reveal itself until much later. I had to feel all that shit. I had to feel all those hard feelings, and then let that kind of play out the way it did, and just what an opportunity at a young age to really learn to be really resilient in the face of that adversity. Like you said, learn to be like, no matter how bad this gets, I know I can find my way out. I can survive. I can trust myself. I know that I can always find a path out, a path forward. And I think sitting with him in those early days and watching him persevere and watching him deal with his adversity, what a model that was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it wasn't the model I thought it was going to be. So it was like getting both. It was like getting those early days when he was able-bodied, when I was younger, but then getting when he wasn't able-bodied, getting both sides of it. Like, wow, what a gift that was,
When were you able to let go of the concept of like, I'm not going to be able to like beat my dad, or like compete with my dad eye to eye. Like, It sounds like that was like a driving force in your life, even during his recovery. Like maybe we can get there and I can have this moment.
Yeah.
When did that?
Yeah, I mean, I think as he started to get out and get more independent and back to a somewhat normal life, like out of the hospital and everything, come back and he learned to drive. That when he got independent, to realize he didn't need. I was helping him, obviously, getting dressed and putting on compression sleeves on his legs and everything every day and all this stuff. But once he started to get more independent, and actually he went back to teaching. He was a teacher, and went back to teaching and got his job back. And watching him kind of walk with a cane and get out of a wheelchair and all of that. It was like I started to feel like, okay, I'm going to get back into my athletics. But then to watch him kind of not to not support it the way he did prior. He was still dealing with all that he had been through. Mm-hmm. So it was like there was resentment there that kind of, came out of the surface for me and dealing with all those feelings. So then I was like, okay, this is just not going to be what it is, I mean, he was doing the best he could. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was enormous adversity, right? I mean, most guys would have, who knows, but he faced it head on, and he did it with a lot of fire. He did it with a lot of passion. He did it with like everything he did. So, my dream on that end, on the athletic end, kind of started the steam kind of came out of it a little bit. And so I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I was so focused on like health and biology and just really, really trying to understand the body, not knowing where that was going to go. That really led me on this path that just kind of the curiosity just kept feeding it to now I'm like, I want to help others. I want to be an advocate. I want to learn more about my own journey and wellness and well-being and health so I can embody these things to show people what's possible.
I just got it. You're a master level of curiosity into well-being. Like that's your career.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because as I was prepping for this podcast, I'm like, man, Scott's lived so many lives. You're like a Renaissance man. You've done so many things. But it's always been like, you become paddleboarding and you are so entrenched in that space. Or now it's like, I think a lot of people know you now as like this hydration expert. And that's like a thing that's like every piece has been like a new puzzle piece, and then you go all in onto it and just like pick up new things. So I think of that as like how did you get into, like I know you as you're the guy, hydration, which is like our core of who we are. Yeah. How did you get into that side of things?
Yeah, that was the beginning point of really understanding, a fundamental. I kept asking big questions like, what makes us tick, and studying natural medicine up in the Northwest and in Seattle when I was up there. Led to really getting a chance to observe all these different cultures where there was no disease, right? where we didn't see everything that we see in the West, all these different, 36,000 now different diseases in the big book of
blue
medicine.
zones, we call them?
Yeah, yeah. Which back then there really wasn't a name for that, right? So it was just a place where there was just thriving humans, and that made me super curious. Like, that's, I want to study that, right? And so what makes health really thrive? Instead of just this super uber focus in the West on disease, why don't we focusing on the healthiest humans on the planet and just modeling what they do? That made sense to me. So when I got to see that in different cultures, and these places were all over the world, different ecosystems, right? But we were looking for common denominators. And so in the common denominator, we started to see the level of mineralization. We started to see the level of hydration, really, which is electrical currency, in their blood and tissues so high compared to the people of the West. Like, what is the fundamental here? What's the foundation of this? It's ocean water, seawater. Seawater and blood plasma are, for most intensive purposes, is almost identical. Once you remove a large part of the salt from the seawater, you're left with the same mineral matrix. Well, there it was. That was the fundamental truth that I went, okay, that's the basis of all hydration. We are a mini ocean. And that's when I knew I could launch a career or some kind of a platform. Like, I didn't know what it was going to look like, but I could I can move forward with that, right? That's a fundamental truth.
Yeah, that I was just going to say it's a truth. It's like you saw mineralization as basically was the key to human vitality.
Yeah, it was like I saw self-actualized humans in their 90s so filled with joy, so filled with vitality, so no bone decay, no cavities, like incredible bone structure, just vital humans. And you get that was my first time seeing really, truly hydrated people.
What does hydrated mean to you?
It's a good question. I think that hydrated means fully connected and full access to our knowingness. Because at the core, we are knowingness and love, right? So how do we access the knowingness?
It's not the answer I was thinking. Your hydration, get my gallon of water every day.
Yeah.
Like what that is.
Yeah. On one level, it could be a amount of water, it could be all of that. And it's that too.
Yep.
Yeah. But it's really ultimately your relationship to water. If a human is 70 some odd percent water and the earth is 70 some odd percent water, we are in this dynamic relationship with water. Water animates life, right? At the core of essence of everything. Wherever there's water, there's life. So what is that relationship like? I think it's a molecule that will remain a mystery forever. I think it's one that is not questioned enough. I mean, it's been one of my greatest teachers and will continue to be as we move forward, right? Like, it's this living, dynamic relationship. We are a water body. You and I sitting right here, we're two bodies of water. We're too many oceans interfacing right now. And our level of hydration in our cells is going to give us access to that cosmic knowingness, right? And so now we're starting to prove this out. Like, if you can get water into the cell at a high level, on a biological level, you're more hydrated, interfacing with your mitochondria. It creates a gel-like structure, fourth phase of water, gel-like structure, that has a crystalline geometry and a sacred geometry that matches up with the black hole geometry. The two link up. It's like two puzzle pieces coming together. You have access to the knowingness. And you and I have kind of rambled on this before in terms of in context of like float tanks.
Totally.
Right? So you go in a float tank, you come out, you're like, oh, there's the answer to that. Oh, that makes sense. There's that puzzle piece. Why? You're more hydrated. Mm-hmm. You've now just allowed that, in that case, magnesium sulfite, but those mineral salts to come into you.
So that's the delineation. It's not water entering, us drinking water isn't it. It's what is the cell taking in.
It's like drinking the water is just one little piece. Can you get that water you're drinking into the cell?
And so how do we get that?
That's electrical currency, right? So that's the negative electrical charge.
So
we're a polarity, we're a battery, positive and negative. 70 trillion cells. Inside the cell is negative, outside the cell is positive. There's your polarity. But to what degree? So every human on the planet is somewhere on that trajectory. Do they have a strong electrical current or do they have a weak one? And in those early days in my career, I got to witness and observe people that had an incredibly strong electrical current, which is really hydration. We are electrical. We're electrical before we're chemical. We're electrical beings. The earth is electrical.
What would be the first things you would do to get someone to start improving that electrical charge?
Touching the earth with their bare feet every day. Because the earth is such a giver of negative electrons, right? It's just, that's, the more we are in touch with nature, the more we're in touch with many ecosystems and the biodiversity of the ecosystems, the better hydrated we're going to be.
You've always given that. Whenever I travel now, it's always, you're like, just find the local grass or dirt spot, just get your feet in the dirt, go breathe for a second.
Get your feet in the
dirt. Like that has been the number one in a truly grounding mechanism. Yeah. Like I think it's probably a mix of getting a moment in time where I'm actually making an intentional moment, and travel can sometimes be chaotic. But it's like I've noticed a massive difference in that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty fast. Getting in water, going to a beach where the waves are breaking, going to a waterfall, go to a running river where the water's rolling over the boulders. Those are all incredible spots to experience the massive negative electrons freely given by Mama Nature, and we are obviously a part of that nature. So it's where we start to blur the line, and we remember that we're not separate in those times. We feel more connected, and we start to feel at peace. I mean, just looking at an ocean, you feel more relaxed.
Totally.
Right? You're more hydrated. Just even thinking of it, you could visualize it right now, and you will actually shift the frequency within your body's structure of water. Just thinking of an ocean, just visualizing it, just meditating on it, those are all. But then on the practical level, drinking water with a little sea salt, it could be that simple to give that water some intelligence, some structure, some negative charge that's going to hopefully support the mechanism to get that water back into the cell. So drinking living water, drinking water that has some mineral content, So that's another way that we can do it. But I also think, you look at, we are what we think, right? So that's a double-edged sword, what we think. So if we think self-doubt, self-depreciating thoughts, judgment, criticism, shame, guilt, those are going to carry a frequency that will dehydrate us. And the same is true on the other end. We start to think in terms of acceptance, forgiveness, gratitude,
You've created a really interesting framework for me of like, is it hydrating or is it not hydrating? And like thinking so macro with it of, like you said, like my thoughts. Is that a hydrating thought or is that a dehydrating thought? To the core of, obviously starting with my water. Is this hydrating or is this tap water that is unfiltered and probably filled with a bunch of chemicals, or is this water and just putting an intention into it? Is that hydrating? Is this conversation hydrating? Do I feel hydrated after? It's a framework literally that is simplified life to me. Is this what am I in? And it's very clear. I think intuitively we know it could be referred as, does this feel good or does this feel bad? That can get complicated in its own right with good, bad, and that binary. But hydrating, like do I become more alive or do I sink? Yeah. And what are those two things? And those are very clear delineating spaces. And so the hydration has been the most important. And you talked about like cellular, we go back to float tanks, like this electrical charge, like coming out of a float tank and the sensation that you feel when you get outside of that and like the clarity that you have. Yeah. It's more of just like I always say, like I consider like that electrical charge is like we turn off every app and now it's just like clear and it's presence. We have no other thing going on around us, and hydration tends to be those keys. Even with psychedelics, it's like times that I enter into a psychedelic ceremony or use that intentionally, it's when I'm hydrated, that is just an amplified experience. And it's such a more, I don't want to use the word profound, but it's more robust. Yeah. It's more robust, and there's a lot more that I'm connected to within that experience. And so I do think that charge, like it truly is our light, and how we expand and how we engage and relation to the world is based off of that, from that core in our cells in our body.
Absolutely. Yeah. The more hydrated we are, the more self-actualized we're going to be. And so I think a lot of my journey has been embodying that, like let's raise the value around this relationship to water. Let's not take it for granted anymore. Like let's bring back in the sacredness of this substance that we are. This
You
element.
and I have been super connected with water.
I know.
You are like the guy that
Yeah.
like I've always had the water connection. I mean, whether it's starting cat floats and like being called to that, it's like it's kind of been unconscious to me. Like I just love it, and I'm like, this is incredible. And then Plunge and cold water therapy and all these other things. It's like you bring that level of like, no, this is what's happening, Ryan. Like this is it brings this level of like, I get it, and then when you put it into words and language, my mind is like blown. It's like, yes, that is the articulation of actually what this sensation that I'm feeling in my body, and it's super impressive, man.
Yeah. It's fun. I know when you start to surrender to it and realize there's just magic happening. Like it's incredible. Our bodies are making 1,700 liters of water a day. We're making water. Water is just water for a second, just a millisecond. And then it's not. There's this exchange going on at subatomic quantum levels in the body it's mind blowing. It blows my mind. I've been studying this stuff 3 decades and it still blows my mind. Like, I think that's the fun part of it. My curiosity just is growing all the time and it just keeps opening up and expands wider and wider. It's given me a context, it's you asked earlier in the conversation today about, these moments of life. And I think I'm reflecting back and I'm like, yeah, I've done a lot of things and I'm trying to follow the things that are bringing the most presence in my life. Whether it was owning a juice company or a stand-up paddleboard company. These were things that I had no idea. I was just in the flow and surrendering to a passion, a fire that was coming to the surface. And I think ultimately those are the moments that define us is when we become most present. And I think that water and hydration and connectedness to nature and, connectedness to other humans and all of these things can bring us to a present moment. And I find myself at this time, at this chapter, like really starting to look at my life and like, okay, what now is wanting to come through me? What now is wanting to express? I've had all these, like you, I mean, you've had all these expressions in your life and now yours is obviously the plunge and it's many different things that have gotten you to this point. It's the same thing with me. I've had a lot of things that have self-expressed. I'm trying to not define myself by culture or by what man has or what society has put in labels. I'm trying to shed a lot of the labels. I mean,
Any as of late that you've come across that have been like difficult, a label that you've come up on that you're like addressing or working through?
I think, I'm a dad. I think that's the fundamental too. Having a daughter, being a father has really been. It's not that I'm trying to shed that. That's something that will just. It's fundamental to who I am now. But all these other labels, all these other things, it's like I'm trying to be undefined, and just redefine myself every day, recreate myself every day. I feel like something's wanting to come through and express it. It's like, yes, I'm a coach, I'm a consultant, I'm into helping a lot of people with their wellness journey and in the best way that I know how. But again, I'm redefining myself. I don't know. At this moment, something's coming. I can feel like some creative expression wanting to come through. I feel like I'm in this new time and new chapter, and we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, because you're such like I don't even know what, like, you're an entrepreneur, you're a coach, like you're a consultant, like you do all these things, but you just move to your own beat of the drum. Like it's a very in that space. Does it ever get like, when do you come up with, like, I say this from me, like sometimes like I try and live that way too. And then there's times where I'm like, oh, I'm doing it wrong, or I got to do it differently. Like, do you ever come up against those thoughts?
Yeah. And usually those are times when I'm judging myself. Yeah. I think of late, that's been what's coming up is like, at this chapter of my life, the thoughts that'll come in, I should do this, or I should be here, I should be there. And I'm like, it's that juxtaposition of no, I'm going to just shake all that off and accept what is in front of me and surrender to what is in the moment. And if I can be more present. If I can be more present to myself, means I can be more present to you. I can be more present with people that I'm willing to help. And if at the end of the day, my whole goal is to be as fully present with everything that is right in front of me, then I can be of higher service, and I can not be attached to the past, not be worried about the future, and just be like in the moment with somebody. And I think ultimately that is our greatest gift. If we can just be in ultimate presence with somebody, then we are the medicine. Our life is the medicine, and we're a better mirror, and I think, and I love that. I love listening to people. I love listening to the stories. I love listening to their hardships. I love listening to the things that make them, really cry, or the things that light them on fire, and everything in between. Like, let's go there. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that stuff.
You hold incredible. I mean, there's nothing ever wrong. Like that's something I acknowledge with you, and I've really taken. It's like there's nothing wrong. There's never anything wrong.
No.
Like that is right. Such a mental. That's a projection that doesn't exist. There's no truth in that.
It's a misunderstanding.
It's a misunderstanding. There's never anything wrong or bad.
No.
Or it just.
Let's move beyond the right, wrong, good, or bad.
Yep.
There's a whole world beyond that. Because that right, wrong, good, bad is going to stay in judgment, shame, guilt, past, right? And it's an ongoing thing. It'll resurface for me just like it does for everybody else too, Mm-hmm. But it's like, how much am I going to have to shake off to find me, my core essence? And it's the shaking off of this old programming, conditioning, right, of culture, of expectations of society, of whatever, maybe caregivers or family or loved ones, whatever. It's like, who am I?
That's really the game. The more we get connected to ourselves, I guess is the way to say it. It's like the more we open up the door for everyone else around us. Like the more free we get, the more like the like you said, shake off the labels. Like it's an invitation. It's contagious. Like we are connected beings. We are connected creatures as much as the mind has us separate. Like it is. That's why I love spending time with you. I think that's why we enjoy spending time with each other.
Yeah.
And it's like picking that world around us. It's like it just becomes it just grows exponentially into the world around us.
Yeah, it's more about the experience when we're together. Mm-hmm. I think that's, if I was to think back, like all the times that, ever since I met you and all the great, incredible experiences we've had in many different ways, it's about the experience. Like, you've been able to usher in a lot of rich experiences for me in my life. And it's felt, with a lot of acceptance, no judgment, and being able to go into that space and be vulnerable and be willing to feel some hard shit, also, and talk about it. Mm-hmm. And then kind of support our way through that. It's a dance. It's a dance. And it's like, on a literal level, I think of like ecstatic dance. I mean, here we were in that that enchanted forest up in Oregon a few years ago. And I had my first ecstatic dance experience, where we're all kind of left in this semi-fetal position and in the middle of the day after this incredible 3-hour set of expression and I think, well, that's what life is, the ultimate ecstatic dance all the time, And so
meeting the moment. What is the song? What is the sensation? What is the feeling? Who is around me? What is that calling out for? There's nothing, you can't be anything but that.
Right. Yeah.
Totally
I think that's, it's like, let's not take it all so serious all the time. Let's lighten up, have some fun, feel what we need to feel like. Let's go in and feel it. But it's just all temporary. Mm-hmm. We are these infinite souls on this infinite journey. We're playing an infinite game. And all the things that we're doing, the families, the companies, the projects, all the things we do.
We're so fucking good at making things serious and making things mean something. Like that's, I think at the core, that's what that relates to me. It's sometimes like with Plunge and where it's at, like there's magnitude to it and I make it like, and it becomes this heaviness. And that's, it's not going to to aid the situation.
No.
And it's, man, like taking myself overly serious, is such a, like this identity to hold to of like, oh, I don't want to be seen as this, or I don't want to do this wrong, or I gotta be, viewed as a certain way. It's almost like, yeah. And when I can have those moments that I just am like, oh, laugh at it. Like one thing I've gone through recently is like, okay, I'm starting this podcast. I'm doing a lot more public speaking. And I have a tendency to like mix words up a lot.
Yeah.
Like I say sayings that aren't the actual saying. And it's like, it's not a thing. And my girlfriend, she finds it super cute, and it's like been brought more to my attention. And then I got really in my head about it. Like, and so now I'm like, it's just even doing the podcast or speaking, it's like, okay, like wanting to talk a certain way.
Yeah.
And then it's like, no, that's who.
Yeah.
Like what to be what? Like actually when you do that, everyone laughs and they find it really comforting.
Right.
Like, and so it's been a reminder. This is very fresh for me.
Yeah.
Of like, dude, say the thing. And it's
right.
But that's been my like recent little journey of just like words and how to like say like, oh, that you're not, I'm not the modern day poet. Then that's okay. Like that, like I'm a poet in my own way. I guess
right.
that's the best way to say it.
Totally.
And there's something liberating about that for me. So, man, I hear you when you say like, let go of taking this so damn serious.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when we try to be something that we're lost. Just be, right? Just be willing to just be you and let it come out the way it is. Don't, we tend to lose that childlike innocence, and we start, when those moments come in and we feel that, we're like, that judgment starts to rush in, it's like, no, it's.
I think we confuse inspiration for like comparison. Like it's one thing to be inspired by someone, how they do it, but I'm never going to do it exactly that way. And it's like, let it inspire me and drive me forward, but not to go set out to be that thing. And I got to do it my own way, and that's whatever that is, running a company for me, who I am in a relationship, who I am and how I do a podcast, like all the things. It's like it's like fake it till you make it. Yeah. It's like, okay, how do I get closest to just being authentic? Because that is what we're in a true epidemic of authenticity right now.
That's right.
And like truly seeing people thrive of who they are in their unique personality.
100%. Yeah. And that's always going to be the challenge for us, is the rub up against what we think we should look like or should be, or it's like, but there's only one you and there's only one me, and we're an original. And so nobody knows how to do it like we could in our own respective rights. So let's just go all into that and let the rest go, man.
Those are the people we want to be around. Those are the ones that like attract the world.
Yeah.
The ones that like, whether it's viewed weird or different or just like like all the attention goes there. It's like we're secretly like, oh, I want that. I want the person that's doing it a little bit different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or just authentically, not different. Just different is authenticity.
Yeah, it's just acceptance, radical self-acceptance. Keep it simple. Simpler the better. The simplest answer is always. That's why hydration was such a fundamental, which then led to all these other pillars. These fundamental pillars. I look at this, what a bizarre reality. We are, 80, 100, 120, 150 years away from the sixth greatest extinction. What a bizarre reality. We were here for this, we showed up for this. The earth is prepared, nature is prepared 4 billion years of evolution for us to be here right now, to have this experience. There's got to be great purpose in what we're here to do, right? We're here to self-express. I keep thinking of this thing this guy told me when I was a kid. When I say kid, like late teen, he's like, don't let the music die inside of you. It's like, what is that thing that's trying to express through you? And I think of resistance. For me, it's this always coming around and feeling the resistance within me that is keeping me from the thing that I know my heart wants or my soul wants to experience or express. And the resistance can look a million ways. But I think that's the thing that I see in myself and in others, where we are always challenging. Do we follow that thing? Do we follow our heart's desire? Do we, and I've had moments of it in my life where I have, obviously, launching into entrepreneurial ventures and taking a very unconventional way into a consulting, coaching business and career in wellness. My path is totally unconventional.
Very.
It's like, but yet I'm learning that, that's really my superpower. It's just been unconventional. Like, that's been my whole life, though. I've questioned everything,
I feel just my observation is you are like, there's people that like adopt early. And then there's people that like are so much earlier than that. And that's you. Like you get onto trends before it's even like there's even a blip that this is going to be a trend. And it's I think in this new way of like, you're not a medical doctor, but I think you are setting up the stage for a new paradigm in healthcare and how we do stuff. Like I don't know how many medical bills I've saved by having a conversation with you, and you're that to so many people. Like your hydration, like you are tipping this, you are investigating the thing that maybe the early adopter entrepreneur comes in and makes the thing.
Right.
Like that to me is like, you're like the guy chiseling down the cave, like deeper than anyone down there, like taking a pickaxe, pulling it forward. And it's like, guys, I think I found something. And that's like the list, the early, the innovators are like, okay, I'm going to go check that thing out. And that's you.
Yeah. Then I got people going, why didn't you patent that? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you? I'm like, that's not my role, I don't think. I don't know. I'm just like a guinea pig. I'm a guinea pig in a game, just like curious and like, yeah, the more wild that is, let's try that. Let's go try that on. And yeah, we might fall on our face probably 9 out of 10 times.
Is there something fun that you're in right now that's like I'm chiseling, there's something I might have found right here that's like, is there anything that's there right now?
Yeah,
over the last few
that's
months?
That's a good question. It's wild. I mean, I'm watching myself observe many people, younger people coming into the wellness space as a profession, which is beautiful. I think it's got to go that way, and we have more people that are becoming more embodied and independent in their own, taking responsibility for their own health in ways they never have before. And so that's inspiring a lot of people. But in that, I see a lot of people like, it's got to be this way, it's got to be that way, it's got to be, and it's like, this is the way and that way is not the way. And it's like, and I'm just observing all of that. And I think I'm watching myself go, they're all the ways. And so I find myself letting go of where maybe 20 years ago I would have said to a client, here's your protocol. Now I'm going, what do you think? What is your body saying? What is your soul saying? Where is it really, really hard for you? Where's the resistance coming up in your life? And asking better questions and letting them come to their own answer. How could I know what is the best protocol for an individual? Everybody's their own best doctor. You know more about you than I could ever know, right? But I can help you and guide you and support you into your own deep inquiry, where you start to ask yourself better questions and start to learn and re-engage with the trust of this inner knowingness that has been maybe deconditioned away, or you've been led to not trust it.
I mean, that's a paradigm shift into, we've always received the answer, whether it's you go back into printing press or pre-translation of the Bible. It was the priest had the answer. I give you the answer. I'm going to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
So you fast forward to now, here, this is your problem. I'm going to tell you what to do.
Exactly.
I mean, what you're talking about is like a true shift into.
You already know. You already know. You already know. I already know. Everybody already has the knowingness that they think they don't. What I believe we have is access issues to the knowingness. So what is the thing that's going to get us better access to the knowingness that's already there? And that's really where I'm focused a lot right now.
Is that to mental disorder? Is that to physical disease? Is that to, I mean, is this a play how you would look at any I guess ailment or anything out of alignment you would take this approach with?
Yeah, I mean, well, you asked there's a couple things there, like what is inhibiting our access? Good question. We're in a unique ecosystem. we're in uncharted waters, man. We're the first humans to live and swim with 90,000 chemicals. Nobody knows where that's going. We're the first to do this. So there's a lot of those things that are impeding us. There's a lot of man-made things that have now, we've toxified our ecosystem in ways that no humans ever have. So we're watching our barrier systems, our boundary systems be compromised. And when we lose boundaries within the body at the subatomic level, all the way up through the levels of our biology and beyond, we start to forget who we are, what we are, our place in the world, our purpose. All that gets really cloudy. So we start to put more value into that thing that's outside of us that knows the answer because we don't trust the knowingness inside, right? So a lot of, like, if somebody comes with XYZ ailment, it could be anything, any label, whatever diagnosis, it really doesn't matter. If there's a biological decline within the human or a mental decline or emotional decline or whatever is happening, the first thing I'm going to say is, what is happening in this person's ecosystem that would support that decline and that separation? And we're going to look at the ecosystem, all of it. We're in constant relationship with everything. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, the humans we engage with, the pets around us, who we sleep with, who we touch, who we play with, who we dance with. All of these things, are in synergistic relationship constantly, all the time, 24/7, never stops. So what is the energy, the frequency of that ecosystem? Can it be improved? And if it does improve, does it give you a better outcome? Do you start to feel more connected to yourself? And if you feel more connected to yourself, you are the solution. You are the medicine. You are the answer. You don't need that thing outside of you. You have better access into your own knowingness, and you're going to trust what move needs to be made at what time, right? I think the key, a lot of that is silence, honestly. Like, can we have a stillness? Can we create micropauses of just in a world that's become very noisy and chaotic? Can we be the radical event of silence and stillness, and give ourselves a moment to just be? Can we be good beers before we're better doers? Right? I go back to this old triangle that I learned early in my career: be, do, have. If we want the thing, let's be first and then do with purpose and alignment, and then we'll have the thing that's aligned for us out of that. But if we go into doingness without being, then it's kind of like a lot of the over masculine energy. We're just focused on the achievement, just checking it off the list, and instead of just, why not just be first? Feel into, who are you? Where are you? What's your energy? What is the real thing that wants to express through you? Are you grounded? What's the status of your nervous system? Are you in survival, fight, or flight like I was most of my childhood? Or are you in a parasympathetic rest and digest and calm and grounded state where you can actually feel into things and discern, So I think I'm witnessing a lot of nervous systems dysregulated out there. I mean, we're witnessing, look at what we're seeing across the mental illness spectrum and infertility, highest level ever. We're seeing all this massive explosion of biological disease, but yet look at our ecosystem. It's the same thing happening in the oceans, in the soil. We're not separated from all this. We are the soil. We are the ocean. But yet we haven't been taught that, and we haven't been modeled that. So we're finding our way back, though. That's the beauty, right? We're finding people are starting to wake up to the reality, like slowing it down. Less is more. Mm-hmm. We can let go of this big drive to achieve, and along the way, hopefully have more fun, which has been a lot of how you and I have come together. We that's why I love spending time with you, hanging out. There's always an experience that takes us into the moment. We're not talking about surface level shit. We're talking about relevant things that really matter, that we're feeling, that could be intense at times, and be willing to just feel it all and go in and celebrate and dance and have this experience and move the energy. And it's just,
I think we're here for the moment. Like we are, at least for me, and I felt this with you, it like doesn't faze me like if this all just went away. Like, and I say that, and I know there's something there would be, but like there's something fascinating to me about like this is all going to be gone in a blink of an eye. Whether you're talking on some large cosmic event, of the Earth and climate and what's happening, or like I'm going to die either in the next hour or in the next 70 years. Like, one of the two. Like, I'm gone. Mm. And then I'll just never be remembered again. And that lights me up. Mm. Like, that gets me, like, there's a few humans we talk about from the history.
Right.
And most are just forgotten. And even the ones we talk about from the history, a lot of them don't even know who they are. Yeah. Like, that's just how it goes. And so there's something really, I find peaceful in that. Of just like this will, for some reason, I make a lot of meaning into it now, and it's like massive, and then it's just, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And it's gone.
Right. And along the way, let's hopefully put value into the things that really move us.
Totally.
That really get us connected to feeling deeply into all of it. Ourselves, the nature around us, the people we love and care for, and can we see, the God in everything? I mean, can we just let's bring back this? I'm hoping, and when I say can we, I through my context, through myself, through my perspective, is can I bring back the sacred in the littlest of things?
What's sacred to you? What's that word mean?
Time in nature, time in nature, time with water, in nature, around water, in the ocean, rivers, lakes, listening to the sounds of nature, connecting with humans that are just so into what they're into, watching them pour their passion into whatever expression. That's always been something I've been drawn to as a kid, even just watching people that are so into what they're doing that they lose themselves and they gain everything. That's super inspiring. A lot of laughter, being around people that are light and levity and a lot of fun, good nourishment is sacred,
So Scott's sacred survival guide right here.
Yeah, I mean, it could change day to day, but I mean, what is sacred? Man, looking into a fire. I mean, simple things. The more older I get, it's like the simplest of things that I, when I was younger, would take for granted. You could feel them, but I didn't really. Now that I've had some decades to feel into this stuff, it's like less is more. I find myself simplifying my life and decluttering and getting rid of things that were, weighing me down, traveling light, continuing to be forever curious and just keep breaking the molds and just exploring it, and exploring with myself. Like, I don't know, man. I'm in this unique place right now. Just who am I? What am I? I'm redefining, I love what I do. I love coaching and consulting and embodying all these things. But I feel there's a real draw to art, self-expression, is coming. I think that's something I want to bring. All these, whether it be a juice company or paddling or all these, they're all expressions in an art in a way. Even consulting and coaching is art. Just being with people, being with humans, the art of conversation, the art of intimacy. It's all, I like to think of it that way, right? I like to think of it, those are all sacred. But I feel like there's a pull to even expand further in expression of art. And I'm reading something right now it's called The War of Art. That's just blowing my mind. And it's all about resistance. It's how we have these pulls, but yet resistance will come in and just hijack our consciousness and keep us from these things. So I'm feeling that more than ever. Like, I have some things I want to express. I'm not sure what that is yet, but it could be, playing with pottery and music. And, that's why I think I love dance so much. It's just a form of expression. Even if it's just for a couple hours on an ecstatic dance night, I still get that free expression where time just goes out the window and you just you're in it. You're in it. The frequency, the beat, the rhythm. It's beautiful. It feels like, we talked about this earlier, there's like a renaissance happening. And I'm feeling that, after all this pandemic and everybody kind of isolated or semi-isolated and locked down, whatever. Man, you can't hold humanity back. You can't hold that expression. I think we're going to see an explosion. I'm already seeing it just, my little corner of the world. People wanting to express in all kinds of ways. Beautiful. Beautiful to witness, I
was talking to another entrepreneur the other day, and he's got a massive breathwork app, and he had a call with him, and it was just so interesting because he's now, breathwork app's growing. It's in the digital space. But he's like, no, I'm all in on building spaces where humans are coming together, which is so everything's talking about software and how do you scale and how do you do things on the internet. And he's like, and it dawned on me, I'm like, yes, that is the moment when everything thinks it's over here. The focus is no, it's humans want to get together. And his thing, he's building these incredible facilities where people are doing dance and saunas and plunges and it's on a big scale. But it just hit me. It's that is the thing right now. It's we are that's the zag to when everyone's zigging.
Totally.
We all there is this desire to get together.
Oh, 100%. And I'm all in on that. Yes, let's go there. Yeah, more human connection, more connection to everything. It's it's in community we find self-identity. It's in community we find self-confidence. It's in community we find purpose.
That's the beautiful paradox, right? It's
right?
We find ourselves with others.
I mean, there's only one in the room, but there's 8 billion reflections. So can we see ourselves? And that's the thing. It's and that's where that's why I laugh sometimes at people that just get so, they either take things so personally, or they take themselves so seriously that they get in conflict, with another, but yet that other person is just reflecting back an aspect of them that maybe they don't want to look at or they don't want to see, or and so they aren't willing to realize that person they're in struggle with is actually themselves. And so how do we bridge that?
Yeah, and be graceful for that moment that they could actually have that, from the to be the mirror, and just support them.
Radical kindness, man. Radical kindness. But it's got to start with each of us. It's got to start with ourselves. We have to really embody. Let's go deep into our embodiment. We can never really change another, right? We can never, I know we think we can at times. I'll do that. I did that a lot of early part of my career. But really I'm realizing it's only through my embodiment that I'm able to really, truly inspire change within another. Or maybe they can see into the depth of themselves in a way that they couldn't outside of my presence. So if I can create a space where people can be inspired to look in places that maybe they haven't wanted to look in a very honest way, right? And look at some of these things. And then...
So I think your coaching's so, unique, but just it's that. It's like it truly is. The outcomes are extraordinary because it's not you projecting into them. It's like them going in and coming out whole in this unique format that has never been seen.
Yeah.
It's rad.
It's wild, yeah. And I mean, you look at all the opposite of that, of where everybody's so stuck on labels. It's, you know, especially around food or, you know, all these different divisive ways, you know, intermittent fasting, non-intermittent, you know, all these different things that we've created to be right. But it's like, it's all right. It's all valid. Just what lights you up? What does your body want? What does your soul want at this moment? But we're so quick to make others wrong. And I have no interest in that, right? Like, everybody's on their journey. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. The fact that you're born here, we're here right now, we're sharing this space, it's sacred. Let's remember that. Let's remind ourselves of that. Of just like, this moment is really all we have. You know, I've been inspired listening to Zach lately. You know, it was a recent podcast. I don't know if you catch that one with Aubrey Marcus, but they were
Zach Bush.
Yeah, Zach Bush. He was talking about this dedication or this preoccupation with time at the root of all disease. You know, this idea that we are so invested into the past, into the future, that we are giving away all of our present moment power. And it's keeping us locked in this looping story. You know, I found that so fascinating, the root of all disease, this preoccupation with time. Because in the singularity, there is no time. Time's a construct of man, you know, but it's been so conditioned into us, right? I mean, we're wearing all the different reminders that time is ticking and all these things, but it feels like the deeper, you know, the older we get, it's like time just starts to close in on us, right?
I mean, man, I live that runs my show into more of like who I should be at certain ages. That's like a big thing for me with time. Like, it's kind of like you just, by saying that, you kind of liberated me. It's like, you know, exploring the concept of, or the idea of like, you know, having a child. And it's like, oh, like, what's that going to do with my time? Like, that's like been the thing of like, and then you just like totally connected to me a moment of like, dude, that's not real. Like, you're going to be with a child, like, you know, or like if that happens, like there's something, you just saying that was super liberating. And I remember a moment that this brings me back to an ayahuasca trip. I remember had this web of time that was like, I saw the web of time and I was like underneath it. And I was like, it's almost like a tripwire. And I was like crawling underneath it. And it was the most like liberated feeling I could feel. But I could like see it truly like externally what time was, that it's just like this net. And I don't know if this makes sense to anyone even listening, but I hear like that did come into me through an like actual experience of like seeing time and how it is just this, it's a concept. It's not, it's a great system. It's a great technology. It's a great technology to kind of create semblance of order from chaos.
Yeah.
But it's for us to move and do our things for our mind, but it truly is like, we have to understand what it is. It's a made up piece of technology for the human existence.
It works for an economy.
It absolutely,
right.
Absolutely. But I mean, we could probably do a list of a lot of values to time and recognizing that it's absolutely not real.
Yeah, it can be such a prison, you know. And so here we are. We're on this infinite journey as a soul, and yet we're having this finite experience as humans in this realm, in the construct of time.
That's presence.
Right?
We're outside of the construct of time. You're in, that's feeling. That is the feeling of connection. That is presence is the ultimate bliss. And that is the ultimate, dissolving of time.
I like that. Presence is the ultimate bliss. Ooh, I like that. That's good. Yeah, that's right. You've all had that experience. I mean, remember the first, you and Raya, some of the, there's moments when you guys, obviously many, when you're connected, where time is just, you just lose yourself in each other. That is the medicine right there. let's have more of those moments, right? That is where we start to really get beyond this smaller version of ourselves, and we start to really expand into the possibilities that we are really just barely human, biologically, and I say biologically, barely human. We're just an energetic event. We're a solar event that's happening at the speed of light. That's just, I mean, I go back to Zach because he's taught me so many great things, but, one of the things that he said that comes to mind is he says, health is a millionth of a second to a millionth of a second event. It took me a minute to really sit with that, be like, we're popping in and out so fast. But if we keep recreating the same life experience, and that maybe that is a biological decline or whatever that is, then we're really recreating the same mindset, the same mental constructs, the same ecosystem relationships. It's like, but we can change all that in an instant with awareness, with presence, like you said, right? What is it going to take to shake all this off so we can find more of who we are? That's a game I want to play. That's the dance I want to dance to these days. That's fun.
This is it. This is a hydrating event. This conversation. I feel more calm, more connected, more alive, and more. I would say just excited on prospects of things.
Yeah.
Coming into this, had a lot on my mind, different things. And it's like, so appreciate that.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, beautiful. Anytime.
What are a couple questions?
Yeah.
We'll wrap this up. What is a belief? What is a belief that you have that is not commonly accepted?
A belief that I have that is not commonly accepted. Wow.
Or something you believe?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that comes to mind, and I got to go with that, is that, because there's many probably if I was to sit with that, but that we are regenerative forces of nature. Fully. Our body is completely regenerative to the highest ability, beyond anything we could put into words. Like, there is magic flowing through us at levels that most of us will never even realize. We are health. We are vibrant health at our core. And so I think what's commonly recognized is that we are this frail being that is, we have to, things are here to attack us, and we have to be, on guard all the time. That's not what I believe. I believe that we are in a symbiotic magic tapestry on this magic carpet ride as a part of this high intelligence, that we are fully regenerating. We are in the cycle of life. And so we can drop fear. We can trust our bodies. We can trust that life has our back fully on every level. Nothing's happening to us. It's happening for us. That's kind of a long-winded answer, but
no, it's perfect. That's how we're gonna wrap this up. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Where can anyone listening find you, learn more about you, connect with you?
Well, beautiful. Right now, we launched this global platform, Journey of Intrinsic Health, in January. It's such an honor to work with Dr. Zach and Jen Perel, the incredible, wise, dynamic coach that she is, that really orchestrated and put together the whole coaching model. And so we've got that 8-week program online. I'm probably spending 75-80% of my bandwidth coaching and consulting people that come through that platform. So that's journeyofintrinsichealth.com.
So if people want to tap into that.
That's an incredible journey. I wish that every human could go through that 8-week journey. It's an amazing.
We'll put that in the notes.
Yeah, that's
a link to that program.
It's studying natural medicine 30 years in this whole wellness game, it's probably one of the most well put together, comprehensive, profound, but yet fundamental at its core to reconnect us to everything that really matters. Ourselves, nature, the microbiome, all the different levels of life, from the most subatomic all the way up, looking at these core pillars: hydration, fuel, rest, breath. That's a beautiful. We've got people coming in that are really, really high achievers who just want to go to the next level. We've also got people coming in that maybe are having a cancer experience or some chronic illness. So we've got the whole spectrum, you know. So, and it's really amazing global community on a private platform that we launched. So that's one dynamic space that I'm really loving right now, and being a part of that and supporting people into that journey. Yeah, and then I'm not huge on social media right now, you know, but it's there. Instagram is there as well.
Scott Estrada.
Yeah, it's yeah, exactly. I think there's a underscore in between those two.
Cool.
You put that in there too, but yeah, and then local-ish workshops. I'm about to hit the road here in the next 6 months probably, and get out and see a lot of people, and get out on the road and see more of this country that I haven't seen yet, and do a bunch of speaking and engaging and connecting and sharing, and, you know, hopefully a lot of ecstatic dance too. And a lot of water exposure, wholly cold water exposure, you know, get into that more, which I love. I just love jumping in some cold water. What a journey that's been. You know, remember we did that? I mean, it's just like, whew. And here we are. What a trip, you know? It's just a couple years later.
It's wild. Things happen quick. It's a quote that it's like we overestimate what we do in a day. We underestimate what we can do in a year.
Right?
And it's like, there's been a few years of our life. It's like how much have we have created and done.
And what will this lead to? Who knows? But it's going to be something amazing and something beautiful and something magical, and it's going to connect people to themselves. And it's been beautiful to watch you go all in on this, and watch you just like create this incredible vehicle for that connection. That's really what I see. You're creating a vehicle for people to connect deeper to themselves than they ever have, at least through the dynamic of water, which is so sacred. Right, so
it's magical to hear we're adamant. Take the plunge, change your life.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Sweet, brother. Well, really appreciate you coming on. Love you.
Love you too, man.
Cool.
Let's go.